It's another brand new episode of Flyers Daily here on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Flyers Daily is powered by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. I'm Brian Smith, sitting in for Jason Myrtetus again today as the Flyers wrap up an off day on Wednesday and get set for the Washington Capitals on Thursday night at Wells Fargo Center. A Capitals team coming in that has points in 16 out of their last 17 games. So suffice it to say, Washington has been chugging along as of late, and the Flyers are certainly going to try to slow them down at Wells Fargo Center on Thursday night. They are coming off the game in Utah on Tuesday, and a very, very long travel night as well with the time change. Flyers didn't get back till close to 5 in the morning on Wednesday, which really is not a normal travel night for the team. A lot of times it's going to be that late. They get back, they'll stay over and come back the next day, but they red-eyed it back to Philadelphia from Utah on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And, again, a game against Utah where, the Flyers were with them for the first period. Even got a goal 5 minutes into the second period, answered a goal by Mikhail Sergachev early in the second. This is after Rodrigo Abels gave the Flyers a 1-0 lead early in the first period, and in doing so snapped that scoreless drought that the Flyers had that spanned 3 games. This Utah team just kind of stepped on the gas a little bit after that goal by Tyson Forrester. Flyers stayed with them. Again, just trying to slow him down really over the rest of the game. But Dylan Guenther ends up getting 2 goals. He was coming back to the lineup for Utah, and he's able to get one at 8:40 of the third to tie it. He gets the game winner in overtime with 0.3 of a second left. So definitely a tough one for the Flyers in terms of that setback. They do get an overtime point, and they get it all thanks to the great play of Sam Ersson, who was stellar. John Tortorella called it the best that he's ever seen Ersson play, and Sam Ersson ends up with 39 saves on 42 shots in that game. So he's definitely going to try to carry that momentum into the Washington game. He is expected to get the start against Washington, and the Flyers again are going to gather for practice later on this morning against the getting ready for Washington, I should say, and going to see who is here. They are certainly hoping that Jacob Pelletier and Andrei Kuzmenko have made it from Calgary. They are, again, we're getting close for the Utah game. Thought actually one of them might actually make it, but did not get there to Utah. So the lineup certainly will depend largely on whether or not the Flyers get those 2 guys back. And head coach John Tortorella talked about it after the game about their Flyers are a little bit short right now. They're a little bit in a tough spot. They're missing 5 or 6 regulars from the lineup, plus the 2 guys that are not here yet from the trade. So again, they're hoping to get all that taken care of, so they have that in place for the last 2 home games here before the 4 Nations break, which is upon us at the end of this week. The Flyers will wrap things up for the next 13 days really until their next game after the Pittsburgh game. And that's going to be a fun time at Wells Fargo Center too, that Pittsburgh game. We're really looking forward to that as the Eagles, of course, are in the Super Bowl on Sunday and the night before at Wells Fargo. It's always going to be a big game when Pittsburgh comes in anyway. But all the festivities will be going, everybody getting ready for that. I'm sure we're going to hear some Eagles chants and all sorts of fun stuff. So we're really excited about that game coming up on Saturday night. Again, just looking back at Sam Ersson's game against the Utah Hockey Club, you're trying to pull silver linings out of some of these games right now. And again, you're trying to look at them as more than just, one game, more than just a win or loss scenario, more than just, goals for and goals against. You're looking at where do things sit right now for the Flyers in the grand scheme of things? And, that's one thing that you pull out, and you hope that this is an indication of where Sam Ersson is right now and where his game is going. Obviously, he has been a little bit up and down this year, a lot of it having to do with injury. He was in and out of the lineup with injury in the first half of the season, and it certainly seemed to affect his ability to kind of develop a rhythm. And again, you're looking back at Ersson's last, season and a half, really going back to the start of last season when he starts as the backup goaltender, and he's got to, again, kind of adjust to that role, which is a starting every 10 to 12 day type thing, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on where the schedule goes and the back-to-backs and things like that. But all of a sudden, around this time last year, he gets thrust into the starter role right around February. And again, he was, a full-time goalie in Europe, definitely. And he was a full-time goalie in the American Hockey League, so that certainly helped. But he had gotten used to the backup role, and now all of a sudden he's the starter. And the Flyers really were hurting for a backup at the end of last season, so they had to really kind of ride him through the rest of the season. And it did seem like perhaps that was a little bit much, a little bit too much fatigue there at the end, certainly contributing to that stretch through late March and early April that ended up kind of knocking the Flyers out of playoff contention. So he comes back this year, and it's his net from the very beginning. But the injuries kind of sneak in there. And so that was a question. Can he stay healthy? Can, once he is healthy, how's he going to adjust to this workload? And the one thing that has kind of shown itself, I feel like, here in the back half of January and headed now into February, is that, he is adjusting very well to that situation. He's figured out how to, be a starter in this league, how to be a consistent starter. And, again, knocking on a wood type substance here, your hope is that he can continue to stay healthy. That's part of the kind of the rigor of being a starting goaltender in this league, is you've got to not only be able to perform night in, night out, but you also have to be able to recover. You got to be able to take care of your body. You've got to do all the things that get you ready for the next game. And you have to do it while flying around on an airplane every few weeks, or for a few days, I should say. The Flyers were on a stretch there from Christmas until really the third week of January, where they were on the road 18 out of 28 days. I mean, it was a grueling month of January for this team. It is great that Sam Ersson now gets to go to the Four Nations tournament. Flyers probably would love to see him get some rest, but they certainly understand that the opportunity to represent your country is huge in any format, whether it's the Olympics or just this Four Nations tournament. So they're excited to see him get that opportunity. And where things go with Team Sweden, we don't know. We don't know how much playing time he's going to get or anything like that. But he's certainly earned the opportunity. And that's one thing the Flyers are certainly hoping that coming out of the Four Nations break is going to be a highlight for them as they head down the road here and try to figure out exactly where things are going with the roster, exactly where things are going to go now with the rebuild. Where do things go here for the rest of the season? What does that mean for the draft and what the Flyers have coming up? They've got 7 picks now in the first 2 rounds of this draft coming up. And, while they could make all 7, a lot of times you look at that and you expect something to come down the pike a little bit with some of those picks. The fact of the matter is you can gather 14 picks in a draft, but if you draft 14 players in your draft, all of a sudden your development camps, your training camps are pretty crowded. So, a lot of times you'll see teams do something to maybe punt down the road a little bit on some of those picks or move up or what have you. Certainly Danny Briere has a whole lot of things that are possible at his disposal, but what I'm kind of getting at there is the one thing the Flyers needed to do when looking at the overall situation is figure out where the goaltending position was, because a year ago, 2 years at this time, they probably thought that was taken care of. They didn't have to worry about that too much. Certainly it appeared that the organization had an inkling of what might happen, and so they did start to stockpile some draft talent in the goaltending position, and that was pretty good foresight, because they have been able to again get some young guys. I mean, it's interesting with Ivan Fedotov. He is an older prospect, but the other guys, Alexei Kolosov coming behind him, and then some other guys overseas. Carson Bjarnason coming from the Western Hockey League soon. They're going to have a lot of options here for their goaltending position. And again, same thing with draft picks. The more goaltending prospects you have come along, what you have to remember is that there's only one net. There's only one crease. You can only put one guy out there at a time. And so there might be a time when they're able to turn that into some of those prospects into addressing an area of need. So, there's definitely a lot coming on, and you can just kind of sense that things have accelerated a little bit more than likely with the arrival of Matvei Michkov, with the development of some of the younger Flyers that are on the roster. Certainly guys like Noah Cates, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forster. That line this past couple of months has been very exciting, and having Matvei Michkov over probably 2 years earlier than the Flyers originally expected, that certainly changes the outlook on things and perhaps the timing. Certainly it's still not going to happen overnight, but it may have accelerated things a little bit. And, part of the reason we bring all this up is that tomorrow on Flyers Daily, we are going to hear from Flyers general manager Danny Briere and get an update on where things are at and get his thoughts on what all these developments mean for the Flyers as far as this rebuild process is concerned. Again, going into it, Flyers are looking at their overall situation like we've got some dead money here on the cap from buyouts. You've got some dead money on retained salary for some guys that were moved out, and Flyers kept part of their salary as part of the deal. Kevin Hayes being one of them. There's a few others that are out there. They've got some dead money that they needed to wait to clear out, and really it wasn't expected to clear out to the point of maneuverability until the end of next season, 25-26. But now the Flyers have made a couple of decisions that have really kind of developed since that original timeline was laid out. One of them has to do with the surprising. I mean, we're all surprised. I don't know how many people on the inside are surprised. Maybe they expected Jet Luchenko to look the way he did in training camp last year and perform the way he did in the first 9 or so games or whatever it was of the season that he played in, and then also the preseason games. That performance and him looking like that's part of why last week's trade is able to happen, where the Flyers send Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost to Calgary. And again, it is certainly not a knock on those two guys as individuals, both fantastic teammates, and the rest of the roster very sorry to see them go, as was everybody around the team, but it is a business. And the fact of the matter is the Flyers were able to clear quite a bit of salary over the next 3 years by trading Joel Farabee. And one of the reasons that it happened when it did, Danny has already mentioned in the media, is that Calgary was willing to take on that entire salary. There were other suitors that the Flyers maybe were talking to about a trade like this, but there weren't any takers on 100% of the salary. Flyers are going to have to retain some salary, and then you get into even more little nuances of how these things work. You can only retain salary on so many players at once. So if they retain salary on Farabee, then they can't retain salary on maybe some other trade coming down the road. I don't even know what it would be, but they would lose whatever it is. They lose that flexibility. Sometimes you end up with a situation like the Flyers were in with the Ivan Provorov trade, where Provorov goes to technically LA first. LA retains some salary. They get an asset for that service, and then he goes on to Columbus. Well, the Flyers can't be in a position to do something like that if they don't have any retention spots available. So they didn't want, not only did they not want to retain the salary in terms of their cap flexibility, but also don't want to use up one of those retention spots if you can avoid it. So all of that goes into kind of planning the future and what's available out there. And that's what we're going to be talking about with Flyers general manager Danny Briere. And that will air again in Friday's Flyers Daily as we, again, start to get closer to the break here. It's going to be, again, a much needed break for some of these guys. When you really look at how things are going to shake out in March, it is not going to be any easier than the month of January. So it is going to be one of those things where everybody kind of gets some rest and kind of gets away from things for a while, but at the same time, the guys that aren't playing are going to be doing their best to stay in game shape, keep their conditioning up, and be ready to hit the ground running on the other side, because Flyers on their first game back at Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. So they're definitely going to have a tall order right away there. So, but we're going to be gearing up for the Four Nations Cup. We'll follow along here on the Flyers Daily and the Flyers Broadcast Network. We'll keep you up to speed on what the Flyers players involved are doing and how everything is going in this tournament as it all heads down the pike here. So as for Thursday night, again, the Flyers getting set to go against the Washington Capitals, one of the hottest teams in the league right now. Again, points in 16 of their last 17. They are going to be a force to deal with here as they come in. And again, it's perhaps an opportunity to witness history here a little bit over the next really the rest of the season here as everybody watches Alex Ovechkin to see what he's going to do next. What's he going to be like here coming down the pike against the record for career goals that he's closing in on Wayne Gretzky. And if you look down the calendar a little bit, the Flyers do have Washington again toward the end of the season. Right now, Ovechkin 17 goals away from Gretzky, and I believe it's 17 games from now that the Capitals will be playing the Flyers toward the end of the season. So we may even be witnessing some history when that comes around. Right now, at Ovechkin's current pace, he's projected to overtake Gretzky on April 10th versus Carolina, but the Flyers do have a game against Washington in that scenario there somewhere. So, we're going to keep an eye on it. We'll see how it develops, but this is something that not many folks are going to get to say they saw happen as we witnessed this here over the last little bit of this season. But again, this Washington team is a lot more than just Alex Ovechkin. 35, 11, and 7, 77 points. They lead the Metro headed into the contest. And I don't know. I am a little bit surprised at how good Washington is this year. I'm not sure if that's a thing you see around the league, but they certainly, I'm not sure that people thought they were going to be this strong. They are 17-4-5 at home, 18-7-2 on the road, which is remarkable to have a road record like that. A lot of times a good team wants to be at about a 750 points percentage at home, and they shoot for 500 on the road. Well, Washington's, pretty much surpassed that on both counts. So again, just having a very, very good year. And Dylan Strome leading them in points, 15 goals, 36 assists, 51 points on the year. He is their leading scorer, and he's got 7 fewer points than the Flyers' leading scorer, Travis Konechny, with 58 points coming in. He's got 6 fewer goals than Konechny has. But that just kind of tells you how things have gone here in Washington. It is a full team effort that has gotten them to this point, and that's the way hockey is. It's not necessarily the teams that have the best players. It's the team that is the best overall operating team that gets the long-term success in the National Hockey League. So the Flyers are going to get a good look at that against the Washington Capitals on Thursday night at Wells Fargo Center. 7 p.m. puck drop. Tickets are available at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com. Our radio broadcast on Thursday night will be on 97.5 The Fanatic, and I'll have the pregame show with Chris Terry, and hopefully Jason will be able to join us. We'll see how it goes, but we'll have a pregame show for you beginning at 6:30 on Thursday night. So we hope to have you along with us for that as well. So once again, I'm Brian Smith filling in for Jason Myrtetus here tonight on this edition of Flyers Daily. Hope to have Jason back with us soon. Also hope to have you with us on Thursday night, Flyers and the Washington Capitals at Wells Fargo Center. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great one.